Well, I'm Rhoda Brooks. My name is Wings at camp. That's my camp name, and I was called that from the beginning because our theme is we climb higher, the Timbertop tree, or we can soar after we climb. We can keep on soaring and going. And so that's the theme, and my name is Wings. So that's how it got started. We began in 1969 because our nephew, who was then 12 years old, his name is Mark, and he kept saying, I don't fit into any camp. There's no camp for me. I don't make it in any camp. I don't have a camp. And so Earl, my husband, said, let's start a camp for you, Mark. We'll start one just for you. Well, that was the beginning. And that was before internet.
Right.
So there was no way that we could just advertise this on the internet and get doctors, teachers, counselors, psychologists, people involved. So it took a lot of doing. First of all, to find a camp we could use, we found a camp near Almond, Wisconsin, and it was owned by the Methodist Church, but they had a whole month open where we could have the whole month for us. We could rent the camp. So we paid them rent, and we charged parents and counselors or teachers or school districts or, people that wanted to sponsor a camper for the whole month. And that was amazing because, first of all, finding counselors for a whole month
Yeah.
was tricky. It was almost impossible to find people that would come out of their summer for a month. But we did get them, and we rented the camp. We had 40 campers, and we had some children that were not obviously kids with learning disabilities. They were lower intellectual capacity, or they had physical handicaps. They couldn't walk or run, or and a physical handicap is not necessarily a dequalifier, but you have to be able to kind of keep up with your cabin group and enjoy life in the woods. So we didn't have a federal government category then of learning disabilities. So trying to identify the campers and find out who they were and where they could come from was very difficult. I had a license to teach special ed, so I was the qualified coordinator. My mom and dad were the kind of official guiders because she managed all the finances, got the campers' fees, and paid the bills at the camp. So she was the treasurer. And my dad had a church job. He was a Methodist minister, but his second title was camping director. So he knew that this camp was available. So that was how they fit in. Then after 5 years at the camp, we decided to move it over to the SWES, Central Wisconsin Environmental Station, because the Methodists needed their camp for that month. And the Central Wisconsin Environmental Station is near Stevens Point. It's on Sunset Lake.
Yep.
And it's a very beautiful lake and a gorgeous campground.
Absolutely is, yeah.
Yeah, and it's SWES is the nickname for it, Central Wisconsin Environmental Station. The other camp we started with is now called Helen Brockman.
Okay.
If anybody wants to go and find that one, I think it's still called Helen Brockman.
Yeah, it's still out there nearby. I think they mostly do stuff with inner city kids from Milwaukee these days, but still in the area.
Yeah, it's near Almond, Wisconsin. No, Almond. So that was it. And then after several years, I have a few notes here. We held the camp at SWES. It was a 2-week camp. We used some of the SWES staff. Summer director was there, waterfront director, the health services, the camp nurse were all SWES staff. And then we brought in our own counselors for the 2 weeks. That's where I met Timber and Spirit. Somehow, while he was there on the full-time summer staff, I think he was waterfront director at the time.
Okay.
And Spirit was someone that was majoring in special ed at UW Stevens Point, and she was looking for a summer experience, and so we found her that way. She finally went on and got her master's degree in that field, but right then she was a student, a four-year student at UW Stevens Point. Then, after quite a long time at SWES, we they kind of asked us to leave. It wasn't that we decided to, but it was something Timbertop didn't fit into their summer goals. Their special ed wasn't part of their summer plan, and they needed to train their students in camp management. That students from Stevens Point, UW, came out and did training there, and they needed more camp management training and not so much special education. And they also were doing summer school there. So it was a mutual decision, but we really kind of felt badly because we felt like we were asked to leave.
Yeah.
But we could understand the reasons. It just felt kind of hard.
Right.
I don't know. Were you part of it then?
That was a few years before my time.
All right. It was before your time. Then we found Glacier Hollow, and that's because Timber started working for the YMCA in Stevens Point. And that made it possible to use Glacier Hollow, which was the YMCA summer camp, where they also had day camp as well as residential camp. So that was a gigantic move. And we had to put out all new brochures. By then, I think there was internet. I can't remember when started that. And I don't remember the date, but I know we could go back and find the date, but that was when we moved to Glacier Hollow.
Early 2000s, I think.
Early 2000s, and that's when you became, well, first you were a high school student.
When you guys first showed up at Glacier Hollow, Timber was one of my first counselors. Timber and Peaches were my counselors as a kid out there. Eventually, when I was about 14, 15, I was a teen volunteer and got asked to come help out with the week at Timbertop. I was out there for the whole summer, and they brought me in, and I really enjoyed it, and you can't get rid of me now.
No, we keep you on. That's great. So that's when I met, I met Spirit and Timber at SWES, but then I met all the new people when we moved to Glacier Hollow. And that's where I met Gecko, because Gecko was a camp manager at Glacier Hollow, and she was so good. Oh, she could handle the little kids, the behavior problems. She handled beautiful interactions with upcoming campers. She was so good with the staff, and she could manage anything that came along. It was just great. And Gecko's still with us, so I have great admiration for Gecko's skills. Then, after quite a few years at Glacier Hollow, I don't recall the number of years. I think we wrote it up someplace, but I don't have it right in front of me. But it became a private ownership, as I understand. The Glacier Hollow people that owned the property. How did that work?
I think there was some change in management at the YMCA in town, and they kind of were trying to run resident camps of their own every week all summer, and we weren't necessarily fitting in with that program either.
Yeah.
So
that was the best. That's a good explanation. So anyway, I think we moved to Lions Camp in 2020. Is this our third season there?
This is our second season. 2020, COVID didn't let us run, unfortunately. And 2019 actually was our last summer at Glacier Hollow, but we ended up at Camp Alexander instead because there were the big storms that knocked down all sorts of things at Glacier Hollow.
Oh, yes, Camp Alexander for 1 year.
Yep.
Okay, so 2020, we moved to Lions Camp then.
2020, we didn't run because of COVID. 2021, we moved to the Lions Camp.
Okay, 2020. 2021, moved to Lions Camp. Okay, thank you, Bigfoot. Yeah. From then on, it's been a very fine collaborative effort at Lions Camp because we collaborate with the camp people. It's a great combination. And how did we find Lions Camp? how did we discover that we could do it there?
I
I don't
think
remember that.
Peaches and Timber were friends with their director from just camp experiences over the years. And
Okay.
as we were hunting around for somewhere, anywhere to land, reached out, and Andrea
Yeah.
invited us out for one summer. And before the end of that first week, she invited us back. And I think we were all pretty much in tears, happy to be back because it was not necessarily something that we knew if we'd be able to return in years in the
Yeah.
future, but
Yeah.
it was a really good fit for us, and I think their staff enjoyed it
Yeah.
as well. So
Yeah. It's great. So now this is our second year, but third year because we didn't have it one year. So
yeah,
that's why. Okay. And the Lions Camp staff is also excellent because they provide the waterfront directorship, the swimming lessons, the supervising, the boating, the canoeing, the kayaking, the paddleboarding, whatever I have at the waterfront. So it's a sweet, sweet, beautiful combination for waterfront. And it's a very nice beach. And anyway, we're just very fortunate we have such a great spot.
absolutely.
And we also have the dining room. The meals are provided by Lions Camp. We don't have to hire a cook, which is great, or buy the food. Whereas Glacier Hollow, we had all of that besides everything else we were doing. So the cooperation is wonderful. And now we're at Lions Camp again. So I'm trying to discover if we have been 53 years. Seems like we started in 1969.
How many years? Because you and Earl went to go run a Peace Corps
Yeah,
delegation,
we
and
were gone 2 years,
okay,
1980 to 82. We directed the Peace Corps in Chile.
right.
So those 2 years, I think we didn't have camp.
And that was your second tour in the Peace Corps, right? You and
Yes,
Earl went earlier than that to Manta.
Monte, Ecuador. You got a good memory there.
You wrote a book. I read the whole thing.
Okay. So I think this is our 53rd year. And I think I saw 55 in some of the brochures, but, or somewhere, I don't
I
remember, but
think we had the 50th celebration at Glacier Hollow,
yes,
and that must have been 2018 because 2019 was the year we were at Camp Alexander. So that would be 51. 52 would be 2021 because of COVID. 53 was 53 is this year. Yeah, you're correct.
53 years. Okay. So that's the little bit of history for the staff. And I'm sorry I won't be there for that early morning training, but I hope to see everybody there soon and be there for the week.
We're looking forward to when you show up. Do you have any advice for the new staff coming in? Anything for them to think about?
Yeah. I'd say each individual child is a completely different kid. You can't just globally say, oh, they all have LD, there's the same kind of kid, because they have various personalities, various interesting characteristics. They all love to learn. They want to be there. They're curious, interesting kids, and they're also eager to come, especially the second year kids or third year campers, because now they know what the place is like. And my great grandson Henry, he likes to be called Henry, but his name is Brooks. It's his second year, and he's very eager to come. I'll be riding with him and his dad to camp on Sunday. So that's why I won't be there for this training group. But he'll be there again, and he's in looking forward to it a lot. His little sister has COVID, but Henry's clear. They're going to test it one more time and then come to camp that way.
Yeah,
So that's the way it's going to be. I hope to see everybody soon. And
absolutely.
as far as any other suggestions I have is just get down on their level, talk to them one on one. Don't yell across the whole grassy area. Hey, stop that! Be kind, caring, beautiful, interested in the campers, and speak to them quietly, calmly. And if you feel upset, just hold off until you can get down to their level again, or ask someone else like Spirit or Timber or Beaches or you, Bigfoot, to help out if there's some kind of a conflict. Because that's the one thing the kids will go home and always remember. I didn't get along with my counselor. So mostly they're all just caring about it, but there are little moments when there are some difficulties, and those can be resolved quietly and easily if you just talk to them on their level. And of course, the interactions in the cabin groups are so important. They're your small little home away from home. And going to bed at night, reading a story, calming down, getting to the point where they can talk about their day. What did you like about today? What went well? What did you enjoy? You know, did you have any difficulties? How can we help you solve those difficulties? Every night before they finally get to sleep, go over those things with them, because that's a good way to kind of end the day. And then a book, a storybook.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a really exciting adventure that we all look forward to every year. When I was working at Glacier Hollow doing camp all summer, this was definitely in some ways the most taxing week of the summer, um, but by far the most rewarding. So
Okay.
always great to look forward to. All right, well, we will catch
All
you
right.
when you show up in a few
All
hours,
right.
hopefully.